What is going on, everyone? It is your boy Kazak here, and today I am back at y'all with another JRPG video. In today's topic, we are going to be talking about some underrated JRPGs that I feel like deserve way more love in the community. Typically, you always hear people talk about games like Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, Persona, and even more recently, the Like a Dragon games. But when it comes to these games in particular on this list, you don't really see too many people talking about it or really giving it much of its flowers. Now, I will say that all of these games are not necessarily perfect. In fact, some of these JRPGs are very much flawed in their own unique ways. However, that doesn't mean that they can't still be fun in their own unique ways, you know? So, with that said, let's actually jump into the list and give you guys my underrated picks when it comes to JRPGs. First up, we have Star Ocean: The Divine Force. Yes, I actually put in a Star Ocean game in this list, and it's an actual good game. I know it's pretty shocking to some people, but just hear me out on this one. Star Ocean: The Divine Force, in my opinion, was a very underrated JRPG that had so much fun content in it, and it had a pretty satisfying combat system. Now, I do acknowledge that some people will give it a lot of crap because of the fact that the graphics didn't look that good. That it had a little bit of clunkiness in some areas. The story wasn't all that amazing. Some of the characters might be a little bit flat to some people. And, people are going to list off a whole variety of different things about why Star Ocean 6 was, has its fair share of flaws and potentially might not be as good as I'm probably making it out to be. But in my opinion, I think it is that good. Now, do I think it's on par with, say, Star Ocean 2 or even Star Ocean 3? Probably not, but I do think that the game has enough value to be up in the top three, at least when it comes to Star Ocean games. Which for some people might not say that much, but for me, in my opinion, it does say a lot because this game was a absolutely fun game to play. As I mentioned before, the game had an exhilarating combat system where you could use the Duma system to fly around all the different areas, and you could tackle enemies from different sides and get a little bit of bonuses when you do it and stuff. It was such a cool and fun gameplay mechanic, and you can do it with all the different characters. Each of the characters had their own unique movesets that are absolutely fun to mess around with, and if that wasn't enough to sell you on the game, well, the game also has dual protagonists. Just like in Star Ocean 2, you have the ability to pick one of the two main protagonists, which allows you to experience the story from their point of view, meaning that they will experience their own unique different side quests, or some story moments will be changed and be slightly different. And there's also optional characters that could only be recruited based off of the main character that you picked for the journey. Meaning that this game also has a good amount of replay value that you could save for a later playthrough and do a whole bunch of different stuff on that one. So I think Star Ocean 6 has enough content that makes it really fun to play through and makes it the overall experience feel pretty good as a result. Again, I understand some people might have some of their grievances and some skepticism regarding this particular entry because of how past Star Ocean games were. I understand a lot of the, concerns that people have for the game, but when I took the time to actually play this game for myself, this feels like a true return to form for the Star Ocean franchise. I mean, it pretty much encapsulates a lot of the things that made the earlier games so dang good. I mean, you have your item creation, you have optional characters, you have the dual protagonist system, just like in Star Ocean 2, like I mentioned earlier. I mean, various fun different side quests. There's also some fun little mini games in there, and the exploration in this game is honestly the most fun part of the game. Seriously, it really is. Flying around with the Duma system was a really, really cool thing to do. And I honestly hope that they keep this for a potential Star Ocean 7. If they do a Star Ocean 7 anytime soon, I think it would be a great mechanic just to keep in there. But outside of that, Star Ocean: The Divine Force is a truly great game that I feel like definitely deserves a little bit of respect and some recognition. Again, it does have some flaws. It has some issues. Performance wise, it's not the greatest or anything of the sort. Graphically, as I said before, was not that great. But this game was pretty darn fun, and I think if you see this game for a discount or whatever, I think you could do a lot worse than this game. Trust me. I think you'll have a pretty good time with this one. Next up, we have Suikoden 5. Yes, I have a Suikoden game on the list, and I gotta say, this game is a truly underrated gem of a game. Let me tell you guys. I know a lot of people love to talk about Suikoden 2, and don't get me wrong, I love that game with a burning passion. I mean, just to give you guys a little bit of a spoiler, it is literally one of my favorite JRPGs of all times. So of course, I'm going to recognize its greatness. However, when it comes to Suikoden 5, I don't really see too many people talk about this game, which is honestly weird to me because in my opinion, Suikoden 5 felt like a true return to form for the Suikoden formula. Now, I do understand that some people might criticize it for the fact that it felt like a retread of Suikoden 2, or felt like it was trying to follow its footsteps, or it was like a carbon copy of Suikoden 2, but I vehemently disagree with that, especially since some of the common criticisms that I would see about some of the later Suikoden games is the fact that they felt so much like a departure from the first two Suikoden games, and they strayed so far away from the foundation that they made. And in my opinion, Suikoden 5 simply just went back to Suikoden 1 and 2, and it was like, huh, good idea. And just completely build upon and refine a lot of the elements that those two games did into making a even more refined experience, in my opinion. I mean, the way that they did the battle system, you had the 6-man party system, and you had different formations that you could take on, and some of them actually had benefits to them where you can kind of do like a defensive position or offensive position. The combat system was greatly improved in this one, and in my opinion, felt the best in terms of Suikoden combat systems. Another element that Suikoden 5 exceeds at is the wartime battles. Now, in past Suikoden games, the wartime battles have always kind of just felt like story set pieces that weren't necessarily meant to be like an actual part of the game, but more as a way to just further advance the story and the narrative. But what makes Suikoden 5's war battles so engaging and fun is the fact that everything is very active and you have control over everything that you do, making a lot of the battles feel like they actually have a bit of weight to them because it's not just some sort of scripted story moment, but you are actually playing the game and you have to win this fight or else you're going to lose. And that's something that I greatly appreciate about this game, that it took a very, very popular mechanic from the Suikoden games and really just improved upon it. Another thing is the story. The game's story is absolutely incredible. There's a lot of fantastic moments in there and just a lot of plot twists there as well that is going to make you, it's going to hit you in the feels a little bit, especially if you invest so much time into the characters and you truly, really feel these characters and respect them for who they are. You're going to feel some of these moments and it's really darn good at many different points. Now, I will say that the game has a little bit of a slow pace to it. It is definitely one of those games where the early parts of it is going to feel very slow, and sometimes it might drag on a little bit every now and then. But when the story goes, oh man, it really does go. I mean, it is, I would say the story is definitely in the top three when it comes to mainline Suikoden games, with Suikoden 2 obviously being at the number one spot, and Suikoden 3 being at the second place, since I think that story is just so freaking good, and I do think it does some things better than 5's. But it doesn't change the fact that the narrative here was absolutely amazing, and Konami was truly cooking when they were making this game. Overall, I'm just saying Suikoden 5 is an absolute banger of a game that I would highly recommend, especially if you're a Suikoden fan and you never took in the time to play this game. Go and play it. This game is really freaking good. This is a Suikoden game that I truly feel like does a lot of things that people want, but for some reason, it just doesn't really get the rep that it truly deserves in the community. And I just hope that more people can appreciate its greatness. But that's just me personally. I would still recommend it, especially if you have not played this game before. It's truly, truly amazing. Here we have both Shining Force 1 and Shining Force 2. Now, these are truly some classic strategy RPG games, let me tell you guys. Now, to be honest with y'all, I am not really the biggest strategy RPG fan. I've tried many other games like Final Fantasy Tactics, Fire Emblem, even Ogre Tactics, and Unicorn Overlord, and all that other stuff. But a lot of these kind of games are just really hard for me to get into for various different reasons. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact with how extremely text heavy a lot of them tend to be, and the fact that like the combat systems have just never really been something I've really jived all that well with, if that makes sense. However, I ended up enjoying the Shining Force games a lot, and I think a large part of the reason as to why I loved them so much was just because of how simple they were. The story was very entertaining, but nothing really too complicated. The characters were all extremely likable and filled to the brim with personality. The game had amazing gameplay, and yeah, it was a little bit simple compared to other games at the time, but it was fun to pick up and play for me personally. I understood what was going on. I knew how to jump into it. I knew what to do. It helped me strategize more. I think it was a great beginner strategy RPG, and I just fell in love with it because of its charm. It was just a truly charming game that was incredibly fun to pick up and play, especially for the Sega Genesis, a console that has so many classic and awesome franchises and games on it. This was one of those games that made me like more open to playing more strategy RPGs. In fact, I used to remember coming back home from school and just coming back to strictly play this game and just spend so many hours trying to make sure my characters were good, trying to promote each of one of my characters, trying to strategize for the next battles. And another thing I truly liked about the game was that it had fun exploration towards it. You know, it wasn't like other strategy RPGs where it was kind of like stage to stage, but you could actually explore the world. And there will be times where you get into some random encounters, and sometimes you will have to fight the enemies too. And I think that was another element that was just so freaking cool because it felt more in line with what I was used to, in a sense that, like, okay, it felt like a traditional JRPG, but it has strategy RPG elements to it. So I think that was another part of it that made the game so fun to me personally. And overall, it's kind of a shame that Sega just stopped caring about the Shining Force franchise and they just did a whole bunch of random stuff with the franchise afterwards. It's just never been, it was never the same after the Genesis games. Regardless, if you're just looking for a fun strategy RPG that's going to remind you of the old school 90s era of gaming and all that stuff, you definitely need to try out the Shining Force games, both 1 and 2. Shining Force 2 is my personal favorite because that's the first game I started off with, funny enough. So, yeah, but whichever one, both of them are pretty darn good. You can pick either one and you're still going to have a pretty good time with them. I suggest playing both because why not? Moving on to the next strategy RPG that I truly enjoy and I think it's underrated is the Disgaea 5 Alliance of Vengeance. Now, this was my first ever Disgaea game that I played, and oh man, I fell in love with this game. Seriously, I just became so invested into this game that it's probably like one of the most played games I ever had, especially when it comes to strategy RPGs. I put in so many hours into it. You know, let me take you guys back to 2015 real quick. I found this game on the PSN store where I was just browsing through everything, seeing if there was any good games to play or any demos to check out. Because at the time, I just got my new PlayStation 4 and I didn't really have that many games on there. So I was just scrolling through and I found this game called Disgaea. And I was like, okay, what is this? You know, it has like a cool looking anime art style to it. And the gameplay looks like it was pretty interesting. So I tried out the demo and I was so glued to this game. The characters were so goofy and funny. The gameplay was just so weird, but also entertaining too. Like, okay, you can go up to like level 100 and like, wait a minute, you don't just go up to level 100, you go up to 200, 300, 400, you go into the thousands range, and the max level is like 900, 9,999. I don't even know if what I said was an actual number. Who cares? This game is nuts. The damage output you can do with these characters is next level stuff. It was just like, holy shit, there is so much randomness and stupidity in this game, but I love it for that reason. It is absolutely stupid the type of things you can do with this game, but it just was so up my alley. I was like, screw it, let's do this, man. Let's invest so many hours into level grinding and going out of your way to pick your favorite characters and just making them as broken as humanly possible. And what made Disgaea 5 so good in this case was that this was a game that was jam-packed with so much content, where even after you beat the main story campaign, you had a whole bunch of fun post-game content to go through. Then you also had some of the DLC characters as well that had their own fun little side stories, and you could recruit them and make them extremely broken. This was a game where power fantasy, if you wanted a true power fantasy game, but personified as a strategy RPG, the Sky was it. This was the game right here. And I just loved how insane it truly was. And I was also insane because I put in so many hours into trying to level up these characters, getting the best possible stats, you know, doing so much crazy nonsense in this game that it was just so much fun. It is honestly the most jam-packed Disgaea game in the entire franchise. And again, story wise, it's nothing really that special. It's really not. It's a bunch of like very corny anime stuff, but it's very entertaining. And the game also makes fun of itself for that reason. This is one of those games that was just so freaking good. And I hold it so near and dear to me because this game wasn't just only fun. This game was also given to me by a very close friend of mine who was also a big fan of the Disgaea franchise. And I always held that moment very near and dear to me because he didn't have to go out his way to do that, but he did because he saw just how much fun I was having with this game. And that's a moment that I will always treasure and just forever appreciate for that. I might go more in depth about that in a future video because it is something that I truly like. It's something that I really hold very special to me. But yeah, overall, if you haven't played Disgaea 5, I would highly recommend it. If you're going to play it, definitely pick up the Nintendo Switch version since that is the version that has all the DLC content inside of it. Plus, you get to play it on the go, which is pretty darn cool. So yeah, go and play this game. It's really freaking fun. And it might not be everybody's cup of tea, but if you give it a chance, then maybe, just maybe, you might be able to enjoy it too. Last but certainly not least, we have Radiata Stories. Now, this is truly a JRPG gem without a doubt. This is a game that has so much cool stuff to it. I mean, this game has a full day and night system where each and every NPC has their own unique schedules throughout the day, which was incredibly unique to see because it made a lot of the characters feel like real living people in this virtual world. It was actually really cool to see that, and you get to play as the main character Jack, who, despite him being an absolute goofball of a character, is absolutely entertaining throughout the entirety of the story, and you do get to see him mature more and progress better as a character. Another thing that I really enjoyed about this game was the character recruitment system. Yes, very similar to the Suikoden games, you can recruit over 100 different characters to your party, and you can have like a party of 4 and be able to pick your favorite characters and have them join you in the battles. Now, the only con to this is the fact that the combat system is very simplistic and pretty basic, especially since the only character you get to play as is only Jack and none of the other playable characters, which definitely sucks, but hey, it is what it is. And it doesn't change the fact that the combat is still pretty fun. It's just not as good as I would have liked it for it to be. But again, that's just me saying this in hindsight. Another aspect of the game that I truly appreciate is the visuals. This game, even to this very day, is one of the best looking JRPGs I've seen on the PlayStation 2. It has so much style and so much personality. It's literally brimming with personality. I mean, holy crap. If this game were to get a remaster, I would hope that they just don't touch the graphics outside of just upscaling it a little bit. Because this game's visuals just really look so freaking good. And it's especially great when you look at some of the environments and everything. It's really breathtaking and almost like gets you immersed into this game's world. The story was also pretty entertaining too. And while there are some elements about the narrative that I do think was a little bit lackluster or felt like it could have done some things a little bit better, it doesn't change the fact that I enjoyed the narrative very much. And honestly, it's pretty entertaining just to watch and see how things unfold, especially later on in the story where you have to make a certain decision in the game. I'm not going to spoil what that is, but that certain decision really changes the outcome of the entire game from that point forward. So let's just say it has a lot of replay value. Overall, Radiata Stories is just a absolutely hidden gem of a JRPG, and if you haven't played this game, I will highly recommend it because this game is just so freaking good and it's just brimming with personality. So yeah, those are my picks for the most underrated JRPGs in my personal opinion. Let me know in the comments what are some underrated JRPGs that you guys played and what would you recommend to people. I would definitely be interested in seeing that. But with that said, this was your boy Kazak, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Peace.